today we will just go through the classical theory of leadership. And next session, we'll do the contemporary theory of leadership. And then we'll have the following session will be on servant leadership as the pillar of our unifying framework for sustainable leadership. And then we will have a session where we really, what I will expect is based on what you've learned from the class, really based on your experiences and based on what you discovered or uncovered, you decided to start having really, I will call it a draft, or maybe having ultimately what I'm hoping is that you can have your own leadership philosophy, your own leadership approach, and being able to not only develop a set of tools that you can access, but also understanding when to use which tool, which model, understanding how the theory is just in general. Theories are really trying to simplify the real world in order to understand it and to understand the principle and to see how we can influence. In our case, we're talking about organizational leadership, because leadership takes place within organization, within community. There's always people around when it's come to leadership, really trying to understand how we can use those different tools to positively affect and impact people around us, and to make sure that what we're trying to achieve as a leader, which is taking people to new destination, to higher stages, and where you want to empower them, you want to really inspire them, where they want to be part of the journey. But most importantly, they need to not only trust you, but to trust themselves and to enjoy the process. And that's why it was critical that we talked about some of the foundational work of sustainable leadership, which were emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence, emotional intentionality, which combine both emotion and cultural intelligence to create the mood that you want to have, the state that you want to set, where you anticipate and predict and basically set the stage for the type of emotion that you want to have around you. Then finally, we talked about the importance of understanding how our brains operate, those three layers of our brain that we talked about, understanding that we have the reptilian part of our brain, which doesn't use any emotion, doesn't use our cognitive capability, which just react. And if you go through the history of neuroscience, they will say that that part of the brain has been formed, there were maybe 500 million years ago. That was really long time. Then you move to the emotional aspect of our brain, the amygdala, which really talked about our emotion, our feeling. And according to neuroscience, that part of the brain can be found in animals about 200 million years ago. But finally, the third layer, which we think that it's the most critical aspect of human being and as a leader, is really our prefrontal, precortex aspect of the brain, which is the cognitive part of the brain, the one that pauses, the one that does not react, the one that try to understand what is going on, to understand about your own emotion, about other people's emotion, the situation, and to pause and to make decision. That's where we want people to operate. And we also briefly talked about, some of the other foundation of sustainable leadership. Well, as we stated, leadership is taking people somewhere. It's about movement. Therefore, we talked about the vision, the ambition, a compelling ambition, vision that people want to be part of. How do you sell it to people? How do you get people to support it, to buy into it, and to contribute towards the achievement of that common purpose for the greater good, the importance of vision? Then we talk about trust. People will not follow if they don't trust you. And how do you build trust? How do you maintain it? And how do you grow it? We also talked about those three levels of trust that uh, we talked about the trust deterrence, where people trust because they don't have a choice. If you have a legitimate position, if you are the leader of an organization, or if you are, I give example as the lecturer for this class, you don't have a choice. You need to trust me because I was appointed as your lecturer. And that trust doesn't go that far, because if you don't have a choice, you can, if you feel like I can deliver, you can withdraw from the class, you can complain about the class, you can even seek that for me to be replaced. Therefore, that trust really is very limited. That difference, people fear you, you control them, you have power over them. Then we said, but there's another place based on experience. If you experience somebody that is very consistent, it's respect their word, I think that you will be able to really trust them because you have that experience over them. And therefore, you know that this person is dependable, this person is reliable. Then we talked about the effective part of the trust, where you, by identification, you know that this person has your best interest at heart. This person will never harm you, will never betray you, and that you trust everything to this person. That's what we call the trust between a mother and a child, spouses, those kind of trusts go deep. And then we briefly mentioned about the importance of power. As a leader, you will gonna need to use your power to influence people around you. And we talked about the two types of power, the position power that is linked to your position, and the personal power that is really belong to you. It is your power. Even if you lose the position, you can still have that power. And one example that we use is when we look at Jimmy Carter. As the president of the United States, some people might say that he was a major failure with what happened at the time with the Iran Gate, with all the challenge that he faced. He did not succeed his second term. But after he left the government, look at the impact that he had with his non-for-profit, about this project for housing, about supporting the poor, because he still have his personal power. And we said the position power can take three forms. The legitimate aspect of it, you were appointed as the CEO, as the director, as the judge, that give you the power to make decision. It is your title that give you that power. But that title, that legitimacy also give another power, which is what we call the power to reward. People can be influenced because you can reward them, or the power of coercion, you can punish them. But I said that as a leader, you don't want to use that position power, because that position power just reveal weaknesses. If you only have to revert to your position power to get people to do something, you should ask yourself, am I really leading? But what you want is to use your personal power, which is your expert power. People follow you because of your expertise. And you use your reverent power because what you represent. You are their idol. You are very ethical. You are very competent. people trust you because you have achieved, not only for you, for them, but for the organization and for the community. Uh, Today we'll talk about the classical theory of leadership. I'm hoping that you did have a chance to take a look at some of the material. And before I go any further, do you have any question, any comment? Any question? Any comment? Okay. When we talk about the classical theory of leadership, can somebody just briefly tell us in general, what are we talking about in general?
We are talking about what, sir? Can you come again with the question?
Yes, I said when we're talking about the classical theory of leadership, what do we usually talk about? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Because
hear you clearly, sir.
because we
Classical leadership. Sorry.
okay, we've been having some challenges with our internet. I am back in the city, but still we're having really. I might, if that persists and we don't have here, I might go to a different space with perhaps a better connection. But let's just try to see if we can work with what we have right now. Yes, classical leadership theory. Can somebody just share their understanding, or what they understand when people mention or talk about classical leadership theory?
My own, in my own understanding, to me, I would say probably, I will cite an example of, is it trait theory or great man theory? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, those are some of the theory. They're part of them. Yes.
Okay. Trait theory. So the effective leaders are born with certain characteristics. These are characteristics that are born, that are inbuilt, it's in you, it's traits. And when we talk about it, we talk about personal qualities or traits or common traits. These are intelligence, confidence, decisiveness, and integrity or idea. These are leaders are not made but born. These are things that are innate, it's innate. It come with your trait. When you are born, you are born with it. You are born great. So, and the limitation, it ignores the role of environment and learned skills. Not everyone with these traits becomes a successful leader because of it. There are a lot of challenges that you come across. When people find out that you have these traits in you, they let you go through a whole lot of challenges. The whole of obstacles will come your way.
Yeah.
The whole of obstacles will come your way, a whole lot of challenges. Even those people that are not even up to you, they want to challenge you, they want to bring you down. If people started seeing this kind of potentials in you, they want to kill that dream. They will want you to excel. So these are the kind of challenges you face when you have this kind of trade, when people find out in you earlier on. So like being a brain job, when you started excelling at a very early stage of your school year, so people get jealous or intimidated when they see your success. So these are things, and they have this. We have another one. It's called Great Man Theory. This theory assumes that it shaped extraordinary individuals, focus, heroic leaders, often made ends and great men. An example of this figure are like Napoleon Bonaparte or Winston Churchill, or leaders emerge naturally during crisis. These limitation, these limitations are we have social, we have cultural, we have situational factor, and assume leadership is exclusive to a selective few or point. So these are things that you don't have, you have to work towards. And we have another one, behavioral theories. These behavioral theories, they are tasked, they are task oriented and people oriented, and you can't change that orientation. There are people that they are limited to that kind of mentality, nomenclature, the way they think, the way they approach things. So that's that. And we have autocratic and democratic and autocratic and democratic. So these are things I can just give you. These are things I can remember when it's come
Okay.
about classical leadership theory.
Okay. Thank you, and appreciate it. Any comment before we continue?
I want to say something. I just want to add a
Yes.
little bit more. Yeah.
Yes.
So generally, classical theory classical leadership theory are typically those theories that have been in existence for a while that are maybe taken more as the norm. So like my fellow student has already said, he mentioned a whole lot of these theories, the trade theory, the great man theory, and all of that. But I think one thing about these theories, number one, is feeling that we are born as leaders, not made leaders. Then there is this carrot and stick perspective to leadership. In other words, people behave in certain ways because of maybe what do we gain or get from it. Like the behavioral theories. The behavioral theories, I look at the things that people do much more than the traits that they possess. And so here there's this carrot and stick perspective that if there are reinforcements, people will behave in certain ways, and if they are punished, they will also behave in another way. So when they are punished, they are discouraged from doing the things that you don't want them to do. When you reward them, then they are more likely to behave in a way that you desire. But one thing they also most of these theories did not consider is the fact that with man, it's not just 1 + 1, equals 2. There is that organism within the stimulus and the response in determining what followers might choose to do with or without consequences.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Yes, and I think that you started to get a sense of really the whole teaching of leadership started with the classical theory. And that's why we call them classical. This is how leadership was viewed at the beginning. Because keep in mind that we had a session where we tried to differentiate leadership from management. Because if you remember that for a long time, we said that management, what were the 4 main area of management that we usually, whenever we talk about management, we talk about doing what? What is management about? Without even comparing it with leadership, when we talk about management, we say there are 4 areas where management, focus on what they do, the management. Well, what are the 4 areas? We did talk about it in one of the class, I believe in our first class. Can somebody remind us about?
The managed process?
Yes, the management. When we talk about management, usually they say that there are 4 main areas or 4 main stages, or you can call it pillar of management, what they do, what do we in an organization. When you run an organization, what do you do? Because you manage an organization, we talk about system, but what do you usually do in terms of management? The basic rule of management, teaching of management, which area they said that you do? Remember, we talked about, when you want to have a business, first you need to plan your business. Planning. Is it true? We talked about that. Yes, go ahead, Aji, Dairu.
Okay, yeah. So, good afternoon all. I think for management is mainly group of people, or maybe is a strategy where mainly someone will be focused on the product, focused, being limited on the planning, and then also on how to achieve that project or that specific goal. But for leadership, actually, is totally separate, because this is talking about growth, it's talking about carrying people along, it's talking about creating that safety, that's environmental safety for people, psychological safety for people that are around it. But for management, for them, their focus actually is specific on the set goal or safety.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And that's absolutely true. And I was referring to the fact that when we talk about management, we usually say it's about planning, it's about organizing, it's about directing, and ultimately they use the word control. And it was after a while they realized that you can really not control people. Then they start looking at different way to spin it. You can say maybe that was how this whole idea of leadership was born. But at first, management was just planning, organizing, directing, and controlling. And you can see the initial teaching of leadership, which basically came from management, was the whole idea of having the leader as a hero. This exceptional, extraordinary human being that have the right, they earn it, they are born. This is not something that you learn. And that's why, excuse me, I'm not 100% well today, but I didn't want to cancel the class. But bear with me. I was traveling a lot the last week, but we'll get through it. And I think that the early teaching showed that. And that's where you have this whole great man theory. Just imagine what kind of nonsense is that? A great man theory. Meaning there are some men, women excluded, that are extraordinary, that have the right to lead all of us. They are the hero type, exceptional. And as you know, that theory didn't last long, because we know that wherever you talk about great men, there are great women that have achieved. We know that there's a lot of empire that were led by great queens. And we also know that there were a lot of queens that were ruling side by side with their king. Therefore, if somebody comes to talk about the great man theory, this is not, it's a nonsense. It's a non-starter. This is something that I always consider it doesn't make sense. It was a theory, but it did not last long. But this is telling you that earlier they believed that these exceptional people that have the right, that they were born, you cannot develop it. That's why stay away from that theory. But what you need to learn about that theory is that it is part of a bigger classical theory we call the traits approach to leadership, where we are looking at the characteristics, the traits of the leader. That there are these people that tend to be effective leaders, that tend to be great leaders. They have a certain set of traits that make them good at the job. That we can understand, But again, they're talking about characteristic, trait, personality, that you must be born with those traits that also limit the teaching of leadership. But that's the foundation of all the classical theories started with the trait approach. And we'll briefly go through that. Then they realized that leadership cannot just be about few of us. Leadership cannot be, they couldn't find a consensus. What are the key traits that are consistent that we can find with all this effectively or this great leader? They couldn't find a consensus. They realized, and that theory was abandoned. It does not mean that the theory was bad. The theory just have a limitation, like any other theory, any other model you can find. They have limitation. It does not invalidate the theory or the model. You just need to know how to complement it, how to use it, and by understanding its limitation, it is now up to you to find as a model that might complement it. That's why once we realized that you couldn't just limit leadership to a few or to create characteristic personality, they started asking themselves, what else is critical when it's come to leadership? And obviously, remember when we talked about this process about leadership, you have the leader, but whenever you talk about leader, necessarily you must talk about followers. You must talk about collaborator. The leader does not operate him or herself. There's always surrounded with other people. Therefore, they start wondering if the personality is not conclusive, maybe we should look at how the leader behaves. And that gave birth to the behavior theory of leadership, which look at the interaction of the leader with the follower, with the collaborator. But then they said, okay, but we can still do not get a full picture that what justified that certain leader are effective and others are not. If Mandela was brought in today as the leader to South Africa, will it be successful as he was when he was there? What Thomas Sankara did, did Ibrahim Traore trying to just copy Thomas, or did he change? Is he being successful where Thomas failed, or is he failing where Thomas succeeded? What is the other ingredient that is affecting the outcome? That's when people start realizing that, you know what, situation matter, context matter. Now here, when we talk about situation, you have to be very careful. We're not just talking about the circumstances. We're not talking about the context. Yes, you can say it is the context, but here we are talking about what are the capacity, abilities the followers. Are they ready for what we're trying to make them do? What is their level of competencies, skill set, commitment, interest? Here you're talking about, are the people that I'm leading ready, have the skill to do the job? What is their situation? What do they need to be successful? Of course, you cannot ignore the context. Therefore, here, situation is both the situation of your followers and the context in which leadership is taking place. And that's basically what led to the theory of contingents. And whenever we talk about the theory of contingents at the beginning, we're talking about Fielder's model. And we will talk about that model today, and we'll close with that because it is a model that is very helpful as a leader. It's very practical. You can use it, and we're going to try to do even a scenario where you try to solve it and to make decision in terms of who should be leading that organization in that situation. Therefore, those are the three main classical theory. The traits approach to leadership, which include the great man theory, which focus on the personality, on the characteristics of the leader, which assume that leaders are born but not made. And there are just a few of them, but there's a lot of limitation of that, which led to the behavioral approach of leadership to show that what really matters is how the leader interacts with the followers. That led, then we realized that the way the leader interacts with the followers need to be depending on the situation of the followers, their level of readiness, of engagement, of commitment, of preparedness, but also you can ignore the context. Therefore, it led to the third school of thought, the contingency theory, which basically focus on the context and the situation. Any question thus far? Now, a great book for any leadership, when it's come to leadership, I always let people know that If you want really to just study about leadership, now you can take the North House leadership book. It really gives you an overview. The only downside from my perspective is that it gives you in a very chronological manners. And you, as you know, that in real life, things are not that smooth. It's not linear, but you need to be able to understand what is going on, understanding yourself, the situation, and your followers. To try, as I said it, leadership is just you trying to make a drink or you trying to cook a meal and you have all these ingredients that you choose. But what matters most is what you're trying to achieve. You want to have a nice drink that people can enjoy. You want to have a good meal that people can enjoy. It's important to know who you're serving it to, and understanding, what they like, what they don't like, what kind of level of spices, and try to, the challenge is that not everybody has the same taste, have the same requirement. How do you mix it much where you can satisfy everybody? It's challenging. It's not easy. That's why I said, if you want a leadership, in my book, as you can see it, I try to summarize it and we just kind of scan it. Now, if you want to really dwell on it, you can get the book. You'll have everything that you need to know. The classical leadership theory, as we said, the trait, approaches, it's about who is the leader. And we can go real fast, because most of you by now, are very comfortable with this classical leadership theory. The behavioral approaches, what does the leader do? How do they behave? And the contingency. Now we said approaches, because at first it was just the contingency theory, and then they're including the situational approach. Now, keep that in mind. In the literature, you will find people talking about Fielder's contingency theory. That was the original contingency theory. It was never contingency approaches. It was contingency theory. Then Blanchard and Herschel talked about the situational approach to leadership. Then House talked about the path goal approach to leadership. And when they look at both the situational approach to leadership and the path goal, they say, wow, this look like more in terms of the contingency. Perhaps we should expand it. That's why now it is contingency theories or approach, whatever way you talk, what is the situation surrounding the leadership process. Those are the three main classical theory, and theory initiated, focus on the characteristic giving birth to the great man theory. We talk about it. Initially, that's what they thought, the extraordinary people. Now, another perspective, which in fact the leader's behavior emerged. There are two studies when we talk about the behavior. The study of the Ohio State University and the study of University of Michigan. I went to Michigan. That's where I did my master in applied economic, focusing in international business. But prior to that, I did what we call maîtrise, gestion des entreprises et économie at the University of Cheikh Anta Diop in Dakar. But these two schools really, basically, they started looking at behavior in terms of leadership. And then Blake and Mountain came and said, wait a minute, maybe both schools are right, but maybe there's a more balanced way of understanding it and analyzing how leaders behave. Can somebody tell me what the school of the Ohio University definition, their approach to behavioral leadership? What is their teaching? What are they telling us? And can someone else tell me what the University of Michigan claim? And then I want somebody to tell me about Blake and Mutter. Now let's just close the thread and then we go. I will not be just in case, but keep in mind, every single question I'm asking is already in your reading. It's already in some of the articles that we sent you. You have encoded it in other reading, but also it is something that you practice yourself. There's nothing new in this class for you. What will happen, I might use a terminology, a term that you are not very familiar, but you are already practicing it. And my simple if you practice something, that means you know it. Now, can you know something without knowing that you know? Of course. Because they say that there are 4 stages, So the one that somebody that they don't know that they don't know. Truly. They don't know, but they don't know that they don't know. Then there are people that know that they do not know, which is progress. Because once you know that you do not know, the next thing is try to learn and to know. And then once you learn, and now that you know, you are confident because you know that you know, and it feels good. But there's a 4th category that when you know, but you don't know that you know. And that those things happen, and we all have experienced it. Where sometimes we ask a question and we answer to the question, and we said, where did that from? That's why I always say that we are, human beings are a very special species. We are very powerful beyond measure. Sometimes we limit ourselves. That's why when I hear, these, when people look at sometime, the need to point out to the continent in a certain way that, yes, lack of knowledge, we need to teach them, even the way that colonization was justified, we need to civilize them, knowing that, when the continent African were farming, were working the metal, were building, and one of the buildings that our ancestors built still standing, and they still don't know that it was built, that they still don't know that they even don't understand what kind of instrument we used to do that without the pyramids. Therefore, if you can come to people to let them know that they don't know anything and that you have to teach them, or calling their knowledge indigenous knowledge, it's really, we need to pause. But I think that it doesn't matter what other people try to define who we are. We should be defining ourselves. But we, again, need to understand that sometimes you don't know that you know. And I want to encourage you to know that everything we're talking about here, you're practicing it. You've learned about it. Feel comfortable to engage, to challenge. Just imagine. We discussed the hierarchy of need of Maslow the other day. It doesn't take anything away from the power of that tool, but we were able to look at some of the limits of that tool in certain context, in certain situation, in certain culture. And that's what this thing is all about. Try to take those tools to understand and to look at the limitation and see to some extent how I should use it into what situation. But again, we talked about that, the great man theory. Don't waste your time on this one. The personality trait is a personality associated with leadership with individual characteristic. Just imagine height. And at the time, the taller is the smarter. And if you have noticed, in many, I've noticed, because I have many, many CEOs that I work with, they were the tallest in the company. Height was associated with intelligence. For people like me that are in middle size or small height, we are a no starter. But again, just imagine, extraversion, fluency. It's easy to identify general trait, to improve leadership practice, rather than highlighting the extraordinary in people that pursue the great mentor. At least the threat approach, is more down to earth than the great mentor. Because here is trying to see what are those traits that they have in common, this great leader, and how can we replicate them. Let's not waste time on that. I think that you get the point. It defines the leader in terms of who he or she is. Different focus on different traits of the leaders that is possessed. This is to ask personality, intellectually based ability, physical, democratic characteristic. People certain race are smarter than people from other race. we went through a long way. Things have changed. To close that, let me tell you, it's all the studies on the trait approach. You have the stud deal, 1948. He focused on intelligence, alertness, insight, responsibility, initiative, persistence. Then you have Mann, it's 1959. As you can see, intelligence always come, masculinity, dominance, extraversion. Then Sturgill updated his model, adding achievement, persistence, insights, self-confidence. Now they start to say, wait a minute, it's not about one person. Cooperativeness, tolerance, sociability. You see how it is, because the more, it's more recent. They start to realize that maybe there are other things. Then you have Lord Divader and Aliga at 86. But see this intelligence part, masculinity, dominance, always showed up. Then you're starting to see how it's starting to evolve, because after some of the major crises we had in the 1990s, where we had the debacle in many this American company where the leaders vote, they were lying to their stakeholder. Then the whole aspect of ethics started to find resurgence in leadership. That to understand that maybe it's not just about these great people, but it's about ethics. It's about integrity. Yeah. And then, as you can see, just give you an idea how the threat approach evolved. And this also tells you about science. This is science. Science evolves. You learn more, you incorporate it. That's why as a leader, you should be very open, to learning. And even if necessary to unlearn, because there's something that you believe as true, that once they are proven that they're not true, there's nothing wrong to unlearn and to learn new things. Because sometimes in order to learn, we must unlearn. And it is very difficult for a human being to unlearn. But as a leader, you need to, if you want to be successful. Any question on the trait or personality approach to leadership?
None from me.
All right. Now, as we stated earlier, because that trait or personality does not really capture the entire process of leadership. Remember, we talked about leadership being a process where you have the leader, you have the followers, then you have the context, and see context like situation of the followers and also the circumstance in which leadership is taking place. But then we said this interaction necessarily will create result, outcome. And that outcome will also have effect on the process. If the outcome is positive, people are more engaged, the leader is more confident, it's enjoyable, people become more creative, and you see the process, continue. But if the outcome is negative and it's not being corrected, people might be discouraged, disengaged, and demotivated. And we talked about a very important aspect of motivational theory, where we mentioned the true model, the hygiene motivation theory, that stated that lack of dissatisfaction doesn't mean that it is satisfaction, and that people might just accept a situation because it is better than what they have, but this is not what they really want. That we're not satisfied. And why do you always seek satisfaction? Because when you study organizational behavior, it showed that when people are not satisfied, they are not very committed. They are borderline. They might not be disengaged, but they are borderline. But because they are not really engaged 100%, they are not really passionate about their work. And because they're not passionate about their work, they're not activating those neurons that are very creative. They're not innovative. Now you see the importance of trying to move away from lack of dissatisfaction to making sure you have a workforce that is highly satisfied. Because it is only at that time that they activate a creative and innovative mode. And today, an organization, it is, as they said for university faculty member, you publish or perish. But today in an organization, you innovate or you perish. And this will be accelerated in the age of AI, which is everywhere nowadays. It is part of what we do. Now, the behavior theory, again, it's about how the leaders behave, how the leader interact with the followers. And I was starting to talk to you about those two schools that initiated the entire study of behavior, the University of Ohio and the University of Michigan. Can somebody tell me those two schools, what did they study reveal? And is there any similarities or is there some major differences in those two schools of thought? Any volunteer? Sam, you don't like to talk. I know you're an expert. Because I know that everything that I'm saying, you already know that. But you choose not to say anything. But you can always share something with your classmate. Because we are learning from each other.
Can you come again with the question?
Go ahead, Mukadas.
Can you go ahead with the question? Can you come again with the question?
You want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, repeat the question, please.
Okay, now I'm just asking you, when we talk about behavioral theory of leadership, it's basically about how the leader behave and interact with the followers in general. And there are two major studies that have been done, one by the University of Ohio and another one by the University of Michigan, regarding the behavioral theory of leadership. And I said, can you just tell me what are the key principles of those two schools of thought, their similarities and their differences?
Should I try?
Oh, absolutely, Elizabeth.
Okay, so with the Ohio State Studies, they looked at leadership based on two different categories. That is, leaders who work through initiating structures and leaders who work through consideration in terms of paying attention. For one, those who work through initiating structures are, should I put it, role-oriented. In other words, they let the employees know, this is my role, this is your role, towards achieving a particular goal that we are looking towards to achieve. While in terms of consideration, with the Ohio study or the Ohio School of Thought, they look at it in terms of what what would satisfy, or what would the employee be looking for? What does the employee desire that we can present? So let me just use this rough, maybe not too good example of maybe working in an area where the weather is relatively hot, and employees would normally want to go out for fresh air, and because of that, they are not able to work effectively. And so a leader with the consideration orientation would look at it that, okay, to get these workers to work, to engage more with the work, then maybe we need to install fans or install ACs, make the room more conducive such that the employee will not be too hot as to feel uncomfortable enough to be disengaged with their work. And so that's the part of the Ohio. With the University of Michigan studies, they mainly divided it into two: employee-oriented leader and the production-oriented leader. We could also look at it as person or relationship-oriented versus task-oriented. And so with the employee-oriented leader, there is interest in building relationships and interpersonal contacts, right? Getting to know the employee much more than just about how many pieces of matchbox have they been able to produce and things like that, but to also look at what are their life circumstances like? What are the things that are impacting them? Do they have, trying to get to know them a little bit more, maybe in terms of empathy and things like that. While the task-oriented leaders are mainly about, you've got a task assigned to you, and you've got to deliver on that task that's been assigned to you, irrespective of what is happening in or around the employee or the follower at that particular point in time.
Thank you. Well said. And I think if you don't have any other comment, that's absolutely correct. And what I want you to just keep in mind, and let me just show you, excuse me, that again, they assume that the leader were either task-driven or relationship builders during their interaction with their subordinate in the process of acting common goal. Now, when study compared the performance of leader who are task-oriented and leader who focus on relationship yielded inclusive, that's when Black and Matt developed a new leadership model, the leadership grid. Now, as Elizabeth stated, the School of Ohio is focusing in two areas: initiating structure. And when the term initiating structure tells you this is really about processes, about system. But then they have in a continuum, on the other spectrum, they have consideration. Now, they are not claiming that the leader is doing both at the same time. They're just saying that the leader interacts in terms of initiating structure. That's mean in terms of creating the process, the system. And in addition, the leader could also work in terms of consideration. They're not saying that it's only focused on one, but they're not saying that they're also doing it simultaneously. They're saying that those two areas are happening. Now, the School of Michigan used a different term. Where the School of Ohio talked about initiating structure, the University of Michigan talked about production orientation. Here, the leader is focusing on the production. You can easily see the similarity, the initiating structure and production orientation pretty much the same. On the other hand, they talked about employee orientation. Now it's clear to see that employee orientation is very similar to consideration. Now you say, are they saying the same thing? There's a subtle difference. The University of Ohio is saying that we know that the leader is focusing on those two areas. initiating structure, process, system, and consideration. As they're doing it simultaneously, we don't know. But these are two processes that might be very different, but they're there. Now, University of Michigan said, no, no, no. The leader can only be focused in one area. They're either production-oriented or employee-oriented. You see the difference here. It is too extreme. While the University of Ohio said that these are two processes that exist, but we cannot put the link. And that's where Black and Morton become the genius, saying, wait a minute. The leader is doing both. The leader has the capacity to be good at initiating structure, managing the production, and at the same time demonstrating consideration and being employee-oriented. And that gave birth to the leadership grid or the management grid. This is a tool that is used by many consultant firms, and many organizations are using it to train their managers and their leaders. Any question? Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I'm not going to dwell on that. We already know a new wave of study. It's Michigan, Black emerged with a focal leader. We talked about that. As you can see, this is what we talked about. It is primarily purpose. The leadership grid is primarily purpose was to guide leader throughout the delicate process of meeting productivity objective without sacrificing the well-being of worker. And I'll tell you, there was a study that was done by one of these institutes about the health of the workforce, and they talked about the costs for employee burnout, the stress, and led to certain illness, even people taking their life, chronic smoking, lung cancer. He said can be estimated around maybe $300 billion a year. Just imagine. That's why I said the title of this class, which kind of raised the bar. We're not just talking about leadership. We're not talking about effective leadership, where you are very effective in terms of leading and achieving your goals and objectives. But we are talking about sustainable leadership, meaning not only that you are being effective, but you are empowering, you are developing as a leaders, you are enduring your leadership, but you are achieving all this without depleting your most important resource, the human capital. Not only that, you are being able to create the condition that it regenerates, that people are healthy, they are smarter, they are more autonomous, they are ready to lead, and they are developing as a leader without getting sick. Or really, this notion, do you guys heard about the notion of presenteeism? Have you heard about presenteeism?
Yes.
I'll pick on you, Elizabeth. What it mean, presenteeism, Elizabeth?
Presenteeism is you are present at work, but your impact is not being felt. You are not doing what you ought to be doing. I mean, that's what I think.
Yes, because we know about absenteeism. What is absenteeism that everybody knows here? Elizabeth?
Absenteeism, that is you fail to go to work.
Yeah.
You don't show up.
That's it. And we see that a lot. Because when people get burnout, what they do, they just said, I'm sick. They call off, even if they're not sick. They're not encouraged to come to work. And that's a major loss for the company because you have to pay them and there's nothing you can do about it. But at least they're not there. You can find another body to replace them. You can take the work and distribute it throughout the rest of the team. But presenteeism is worse. They're sitting doing nothing. And that's what we are experiencing nowadays. Just imagine how it will affect productivity and overall performance. And that's why I'm saying that Blake and Morton did something really genius by saying, yes, the leader has the ability to focus on the process, on the production, without sacrificing, building relationship. And there's a, you can Google that. It's I think I didn't put it in the book, but you can find it anywhere you want. You have this behavioral, this leadership grid that have initiating structure at the bottom and on the axis, and vertically, horizontal and vertically. You have the whole idea about focusing on people, and at the extreme, you have the impoverished management is when the leader is not focusing on the production, it's not even focusing on the people. It's called impoverished management. You're not doing anything. The country club management is really where the leader is so focused on the relationship. He doesn't care about the production. They kind of country club management. He just want to be nice to everybody, and that's not a good thing. But then you have the middle of the road management. It's a middle ground where you're not, in the middle of the road. You are halfway focused on the production, halfway on the people. But now you have my way or the highway, the authority. He doesn't care about the relationship. All he cares about is the production. This is what I need. You're sick, I don't care, you do the work. Treat people like just another input because they want to produce. Now, ideally, what we'll call, and you'll find that in our definition of the shared leadership approach, where the leadership is rotated among the team based on what needs to be done and who is the most qualified person at that stage. You see how you divided the responsibility, how leadership is shared among all the people. And you can see right here how it's empowering. You can be a junior, but might be the best at something. And when we are at that point, you're the one leading the entire team. It's very empowering. It makes you feel good. It's about recognition. And that motivates people. That inspires people. That's exactly team management. That's why shared leadership sometimes can be defined also as team leadership. And here, you're focusing on the production, 100% getting it done, but you're also focusing on people 100%. And this is what I just mentioned to you. The Marshall Grid, Blake and Morton. This is the genius of Blake. As I say, concern for result. Here he's talking about in the Ohio school, here talk about initiating structure. The School of Michigan will say here, production orientation. And you can see at the bottom on the vertical, you said concern for people. Here you have the highest concern. And you see pattern 1.1, what it says you are not being focused on the production, on the result. You don't even focus on the people. This is the worst. And can somebody tell me what this look like? There's another theory model that kind of talk about something similar, where you were just there, what it sound like? Can somebody, Elizabeth, I see your mic is open. Do you know anything where the leader, he really just sitting there. He's not doing anything. What the term they use, a leader that is just sitting there, watching everybody do whatever they want to do, what would they call them? Let me
Is it
give you a
passive?
hint. Huh?
Is it passive?
Yeah, let me give you a hint. They use a French word.
Laissez-faire?
right?
Laissez-faire?
That's it. They call laissez-faire, laissez-aller. Hey, do how you see what, that's, and we said that's real absence of leadership. Laissez-faire, laissez-aller is not leadership for me. Therefore, you can see here the leader is not focused on production, is not focused on the person. At the extreme is extremely focused on initiating structure and production. The authority complex management, efficiency in operation result from arranging condition of work in such a way that human element interfere to a minimum degree. We are treated like machine. And you can tell that this is not empowering. This is not motivating. And it's not even being effective and not being sustainable, because we just talked about absenteeism. When people are in this situation, that's when they fall off. They don't come to work. They still have to pay them. Or they come to work and not do the work. And you still pay them, and they're actually harming the organization. Then, you have the middle road. Here, that's the genius of this framework, is you can now do survey in your organization and try to understand, where your managers, where your supervisors are, where are your leaders, in which category they fit, and how you can coach them, to get, to certain places, to understanding where they are. And then you have the country club. He's just being a nice guy. He pay attention now. The laissez-faire, laissez-aller is not the country club. Because the laissez-faire, laissez-aller is that whatever you do is good for me. Hey guys, hey, don't mind me. That's it. But here, you're focusing entirely on the consideration part. You're trying to make sure that your team is being supported, that they have what they need, that people are satisfied, thoughtful attention to the need of the people. Satisfying relationship leads to a comfortable, friendly organization atmosphere and work tempo. That's critical, because you want a friendly atmosphere. You want to create an healthy, environment. That's why, in my research, I looked at the organizational health, the relationship between leadership and organizational health, and we were able to identify, I believe maybe 5 level of organizational health. A toxic one, where people are openly fighting. It's like they hate each other. Toxic. From the bottom to the top, the leader, the employee, everybody is screaming at each other. They hate each other. They're trying to destroy each other. That's the worst part. A toxic organizational culture. Then you have a poor. It's not to that extent, but people are not, collaborating. They're not working together, they're not supporting each other. It's very poor relationship. Or they have this in-group, where some people get along as a people, but there's not really the entire working together. That's the poor one. Then you have the very limited, organizational health, where everybody just they do the minimum, to get along. It's very limited. But then you're gonna have another organizational health that is what we call here. We're using the other area, which is more. If people that have studied servant leadership, you have an area where the organizational health is this kind of service oriented, where they all like to work one another. It's actually, they call it excellent, organizational health, where they all work together very well. They communicate, and there is good camaraderie. Then you have the highest level is optimal organizational style, which has been associated with servant leadership. How servant leadership have the ability to create an optimal organizational health. But again, you can see, the country club, as I said, do not confuse it with the laissez-faire, laissez-aller. It's like when you're just focusing on this thing. And then you have the team management, that you have the team management, which is the ideal part of this thing. Give me just 1 second. Let me just give. Any question? Any question, any comment?
I don't have any.
And how are we doing?
Good.
Don't need any pause? Keep going?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, this is a tool that I will encourage you to use within your organization and for yourself. Try to look at, where do I fit in this? Now, let's just do a round table. Can briefly you tell me, where do you see yourself as a manager, in this leadership grid by Black and Mutton? I start with you, Elizabeth. Then I will move to Ife, then Sally, then Aji, and Mukadas. Now you know that I'm coming after you. Elizabeth, where do you see yourself?
Where I see myself in the grid.
Yes. Oh, not you, but talk about your leader. It's much easier.
Okay.
Now you can evaluate your leader in your organization. I hope he's not or she's in this class. I will never see this video. No, but either way, you can either evaluate yourself or you can evaluate a former leader. At least your current leader will not pick on you.
Yeah, I think more in the middle range and the middle road of management, right? Adequate organization performance is possible through balancing the necessities to get work out while maintaining morale of people at a satisfactory level. Yeah, that's how my current leader operates.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, she's very she's very concerned with how do I put it? Is it autonomy? And so, yes, there may be a need to do something. And if for whatever reason you are not able to do it, she listens to you to understand why you think it will not work, or not why you think it will not work, but why you are unable or you are unavailable, or why you want to do it in another way. And she allows you do it in that, I mean, so far as you are able to still achieve what we are aiming to achieve. So she's flexible enough to still allow you to do certain things in your own way without forcing a particular modality on you.
Basically, your leader, she's very supportive. She also delegates.
Yes.
Thank you. Ife? Zeka?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
much better now.
Okay, so I think Yes, yeah, okay, all right. So my leadership here on the team management, work accomplishment is from committed people. Interdependent, strict, common stake in organization. Organization's purpose leads to relationships of trust and respect.
Oh,
Because what we do, so we're food service. And
can you
can you
speak
hear
louder?
me?
Excuse me. Can you speak louder? I don't know if it's just me, but go ahead.
Is it better? Is it
Yes, go
is
ahead.
it better now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we are seated on the management where work accomplishment is from committed people, interdependent, straight, common stake in organization's purpose, leads to relationships of trust and respect. Because what we do, we are into food service and we have multiple locations. Team management is very key because we can my leader and we can be in multiple places at the same time. So the approach right from when I joined was to ensure adequate team management, and that most people are committed, and in order for us to achieve a common goal, just because like what we do is very, very dependent on our teams. So efficiency of the team is critical. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well done. You guys achieved something very difficult. Team management. It's really, the ultimate stage. That's in terms of leadership. Yeah, that's very powerful because that team management is what you need today. Yes.
In my own
Yeah.
organization, sorry, yeah, we
Yeah. Go ahead.
also do team manage. Yeah, in my own organization, we also do team management. And team management because it's a healthcare organization burdened with compliance and regulations management. First of all, no matter your rank and status, we call each other by first name. So when you walk in, even if you're the director of operations, director of this, I call you Miss Martinez, Miss James, Mr. James, Miss this, it creates that kind of. I understand that in as much as we have, hierarchy in terms of leadership, but everybody is respected based on what you have to contribute to the team. And then each time the goals are made very clear by the team leader, the management, the goals are made very clear. But you notice that from time to time, one is moved from one department to the other, not physical movement, but maybe paperwork is moved from you to the other person. Well, because we know that the expertise of that person in that very place is what we need for us to achieve a particular task. So most times, that makes it easier for the younger ones and the lower ones in terms of cadre to trust the upper class of people in the organization. So at the end of the day, most times even when there are reports that go to the highest in terms of management, they still want it to come down to other levels and say, have you discussed it amongst the teams before bringing it up to the final level? So that is the kind of, interdependence support that we get before it gets to the final. But we all understand that, yes, there's a hierarchy, but then thing had to go in terms of, the commitment of people, accomplishment will have to go with the commitment of people that are involved in that team. That's how we run.
Yeah. Thank you. Outstanding. Sally?
Am I the next? Oh, okay.
I think Sally,
Okay.
and that's you after Sally.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, in my own establishment, I tend to juggle between authority, compliance management, and the team management. I actually lead about 104 people in my group, and I must make sure that they comply to our regulations set up in the industry.
I am in charge of making sure that there is no injuries to persons and making sure that there is no damage to property or environmental degradation. So my role is to make sure that I enforce as well as bring people into team. Otherwise, you just see people go astray. So sometimes and most times, I juggle between making them comply and setting up a team. So when I meet the senior management team that where I belong, I try to bring that cohesion within us. Then when I go down to the lower level, I try to make sure that they comply so that they won't get injured in process of doing their job. So I just juggle like that. And so far it's been so good and it's working for us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. But I have a question. If you remember, the authority compliance management is really focusing and trying to minimize the human interaction. But what I'm hearing from you, you're really trying to get the work done to make sure they don't get injured, which is positive. But at the same time, you do pay attention to the human aspect to them, to their need. And it sounds more like you were in the middle of the road. What do you think, or the rest of the team? Do you think that your colleague is more in the middle of the road than juggling? Or is it possible to do the team management and to do the authority at the same time? Sally, you have your
sometimes,
yeah, let's yes,
I
Sam's hand. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sometimes I find myself in the middle of the road, but
okay,
more of the job is done by enforcing compliance because we have more crew in the lower level that must be tailored to do their job than the few in the team management. So most times we just give instructions to those on the team and then go down and then enforce. But in a nutshell, it appears to be a middle of the road management. But because compliance is paramount in the kind of job we do, that's why I also toe that line.
Thank you. All right, Sams, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. And thank you very much to everybody who has contributed to this session. I think I would pick between the country club management and team management. So I'm going to use my coaching support group as an example. So I work in partnership with a global coaching organization here in Lagos, Nigeria, where we run a monthly coaching support group. And that coaching support group consists of HR consultants who are doing very big stuff. We have, learning and development professionals. We have people in the corporate individuals come together on a monthly basis for us to run, we run like a mastermind alliance kind of thing. So what I do as the president is from the country club management aspect of it, what I do is once in a while, I go into their organizations to train some of their staff for them for free. So it makes it easier for me to, so the first thing I did was include them in my executive team. And then I go into the organizations to train. Maybe once in a month, I could pick once in a quarter to train some of their staff for free. In some of these trainings that cost them some, thousands of naira. So it makes it easier for me to give them responsibility, and then they go to work without even having to look at their time management and every other thing that comes together with it. You know what it is when you have people who are big consultants, they don't have the time, right? So what I did was, appealing to their emotions first by going into the organizations to train their staff for free. and then they come back to do my work for me just once in a month. So talking about country club management and then the team management, like, you know, work accomplishment from committed people. I get them committed to my own work by first appealing to their conscience, to their emotions, their work, and everything that comes together with it. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. I think that what I take away is that you actually want to get them to the team management, and you said to yourself, you know, in order for me to inspire them, to motivate them, let me kind of make it easy for them to bring them, but deep inside, you know, you have a roadmap to take them somewhere. But the country club management, you know, is only focusing, you know, on just, hey, I just want to be called them, you know, Mr. or Miss Nice Guy. Now, in your case, you are being very intentional. You're just trying to be the nice guy, because if you do it for free, you have said to yourself, I'm going to get them to commit and they're going to pay. And because that I'm demonstrating value, you know, you are not being the country club here. You are strategizing to get them to see the value that you can provide in order for them to become reliable, dependent customers and to meet whatever goals you have. But you're not just sitting there to just be nice. Am I
Absolutely.
correct? Or
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely right.
All right. And where else we have? Aji? Dairo?
Yes. Yes. Thank you. I think my colleague have attended almost all the points because in my organization, actually, the one that's directly supervising me, fortunately, she's the one that actually heading the organization. So there is a one way that he leads specifically the senior management team, which I'm part of it. And like he has this kind of shared responsibility across the team. So like, for example, even if he's going on leave, he has that kind of delegations. And then also with a clearly specified tasks for everyone among the team to ensure that support you. So he has that kind of creating environment for growth. And then in terms of day-to-day management and activities, I think for me, I will classify him under team management and sometimes middle of the road management, because he actually manage you based on your competence. So if there is and so that if you have the competence and you have the motivations to do, he will like just leave you at the middle of road management to ensure that you take decision, you do everything, and then just give him the result. But and if you understand that your competence is a bit shaky, so he will try to put you up to speed, like to manage you very closely, not micromanagement, but in a way that at least he will motivate you to elevate you to achieve that level of competence that matched with the position you are. So he's actually managing us based on our competence, and then also based on how the context suits it. Thank you.
Thank you. And as you can see, you're already getting glimpse of the situational leadership, and the Black and Mountain, you know, approach is actually it may be the foundation, you know, for Hirsch and Blanchard situational leadership model, and you'll see that, you know, toward the end. Thank you, guys. And this is the whole idea: is for you to know that yes, it could be very abstract, but you know, there are some tools that we can use to just have a better understanding of our environment. You know, this management grade or leadership grade is very applicable, you know, for us. It can be, you know, some kind of guiding, you know, tool, you know, as a leader. Thank you. Let's now try to go to the next stage. Let me see now. Okay. Now we basically finished the behavior. Now we're going to talk about contingency theories. As I mentioned earlier, you know, we used to just look at the Field's model, and we'll spend some time on that today. I think for the remaining of the time. And let's first just talk about it. You know, this was the original theory. Fielder contingency theory. And what does it say? You know, it was developed by Fred Fielder in 1964. And what is argued is that there's no single best leadership style. That's the whole premise. Is a leader's effectiveness depends on how well the innate leadership style, whatever innate can be considered like dominant or the most comfortable leadership style, fits the current situational context. Now, I did emphasize, when we talk about situational context, we're talking about two levels. The situation of the followers, their levels of preparedness, readiness, and the context in which leadership is taking place. Therefore, what it tried to achieve is to find compatibility between the current situation and the leader's preferred leadership style. Now, when we say preferred, is that we all tend to lean towards, certain way of doing things. It's just like we feel more comfortable doing it this way. But remember, when we talked about the importance of the foundational work of leadership, emotional intelligence, we did look at how our emotion affect us and affect the way we think and the way that we behave, which definitely will shape our relationship with people, which will determine our result. Then we say, wait a minute, am I allowed to just do whatever I feel like? No. We want to make sure that we monitor, our emotion, and we also try to understand our emotions and to see how it affects us and how to regulate them. But also we said not only understanding our emotion and being able to regulate them, but we're also dealing with people from different background, different culture, different religion, different generation. People don't realize that diversity, even in your own house, you have if you are, a female, then you're dealing with a male, you are already different. Then you have your children, different generation. That's all of that is very different. And how do you connect? Sometimes your style is completely off. We don't speak the same languages. It's not just because that we speak whatever. No, you don't speak the same languages. This Gen Z, millennials, they all have different way to communicate. And it is important to find that your style, emotional, intellectual intelligence become important. And I mentioned that even if you're in the Western world, in any organization, you have people from different backgrounds, different cultures, speak many, many languages in your own organization. Therefore, the present circumstances should determine the leader's styles for that to be successful. It has three core components, and it's possible that there are three factors that shape the leader-member relations. What kind of relationship exists between the leader and the members, meaning the follower? Is it a good relationship? So is it something is very poor? The task structure, how well is defined, what we need to achieve. Is it clearly defined? As we all know, the various steps, is it, high level, very structured or very low? Or the position power, the person in charge have very strong power or very weak power. Those are those three elements that will determine, the success of the relationship. The success could be attributed to its focus on the leader, the follower, and the situation. Now, there are numerous studies that have validated Fielder's model. That's why I want to discuss it. This is the Fielder's contingency model. And as you can see, you have the leader-member relationship, you have the task structure, and you have the position power. Now, the leader-member relationship can be either good or poor. Is it toxic? Or is it very healthy? Is it excellent? Or is it even optimal? the tax structure, as you can see, the tax structure can be a high structure that is very clear. Everybody know what they're supposed to be doing. It's very precise. Or it's a very low structure, where some area are not very clear. At the same time, under the high structure, you can have a situation where the power of the leader is either very strong or very weak. Or under the low structure, you can also have both. Now, in case where the leader membership is poor, you can still have either high structure or low structure. And you can see there are 8 scenarios or scenarios that we can really find. Now, I'm sure that somebody's going to tell me, what is LPC? Can somebody answer that question? What do you mean by LPC? Low LPC, middle LPC, and high LPC.
So
Thank you.
LPC is the least preferred co-worker. And so a person who has high LPC is more relationship oriented, while those with the low least preferred co-worker are more task oriented. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Now, can you, what does it mean when you say that the least preferred co-worker?
Okay.
Why do we need that as a benchmark for this model? Can you tell us the source?
The way the least preferred co-worker is a tool. I mean, the LPC is a scale that was used to address or used to identify how leaders or co-workers would describe those that they are working with, whether least preferred. So if the person is a least preferred co-worker that is described in positive terms, and that the person does not even really mind working with that person, that is like a high relationship oriented person that is being assessed in terms of the least preferred co-worker. And so if the person used more negative terms, more critical, complaining about that individual, then that becomes a task-oriented person who would rather not work with this person that has all of these negatives according to their own attitude or perception of that worker. And so generally they now looked at it in terms of the kind of combination that needs for the employee or for the employer follower combination that would work, right? So here when we talk about strong, is it strong power? And I'm confused already, but I think you have a general idea.
No, you're doing, actually, that's outstanding, because this tool is not, let me just say, it's not an easy tool, but I insisted for us to spend some time, because most people just read it and they just move, but let's try to understand it. And let's try to see how we can use it. Really, what your colleague is saying is that this least preferred co-worker, it is a tool that was created, it's a questionnaire. And in that questionnaire, you are being asked to rate not the person that you dislike the most. You are asked to rate the person that you find the hardest person to work with. The most difficult person you think that, you are working with in your organization. And they said the least preferred co-worker. They're not saying that somebody you dislike. You see, the word has been chosen carefully. The least preferred, meaning you don't dislike that person, but you just find it very difficult to work with that person. And you're being asked, we want you to rate that person. And what we will look at is that how you're going to rate that person. Let me, in general, what we can say, if you are being asked, who's your least preferred picture at Osiri? All right. And he said, Dr. Bang. Oh, yes. I don't even need to think about it. He's my least preferred, teacher. Now, you're not saying I dislike Dr. Bang, but he's the least preferred. That means I prefer the others. Therefore, we ask you to rate it. And you rate Dr. Bang. And yes, Aji, you can, Dahiru, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, mine actually is not to answer the question, but to ask you a question actually.
Okay.
So we are talking about the least preferred co-worker, and you are saying that for those that actually have that low LPC are the most tax-oriented. And then I picture it actually in my organization, and unfortunately, we have a colleague that actually very hard to work with, almost everyone. And if you see problem comes up, it's directly from that person because he's not tax oriented and he's not delivering the result. So that's why I'm kind of confused and picturing it in a way that I don't know, maybe if I'm the one that actually didn't understand.
Now let's pick on you. We use as an example. He has his own least preferred coworker. Now there's a questionnaire that's out there, and the questionnaire will ask you, what do you think about that person? And I will show you the questionnaire. And based on your answer to the questionnaire, we will know if you happen to answer, even though it's your least preferred coworker, but you still see some positivity to work with it. To say now he's he's committed, he's very intense, it's someone that get things done. If you rate him or her positively, what does it say about you? You just say that this guy is a very difficult person.
Then
but if
I'm the bad one.
Now, the question becomes, if you happen to rate him, in the middle, or you rate him, give him high grade in some area, we said, wow, even though this guy is a very difficult, you still find some way to find something good about this person. You know what we'll call you? You are a relationship-oriented person because you rate him high, even though he's a difficult person.
Okay.
Yeah. You see, now, if you rated him low, we say, hey, you would just want to get the work done. And for you, this guy is getting in your way. We say, you are a very task-oriented person. Therefore, you are a low LPC. You will be now considered a task-oriented person. And that, you see, if you look at the tool, we look at now all this situation. What is the current situation? If you were using your organization today, and we said, what is the situation in your organization? Are you guys in crisis? Let's just assume that you guys are in crisis. Okay? Now, let's assume that the leader-member relationship, let's just say it's poor. Okay? Then the tax structure, we said that it's very ill-defined. It's a very low tax structure. And then we look at your power position. You said, you know what? They give you, because you're in a crisis, the board give you the power to hire, fire, to move resources. You have very strong power. Now, are you the right person to solve the problem for the organization that is in a crisis? Or are you the wrong person? If you have competed with another person, that in this situation, that person, the same situation, but the person has a high LPC. And we want to find someone. Who do you think is the right person? And you are the board, and you want to hire between your colleague and another person, but the only difference between the two, remember, we have a poor leader-member relationship. It's not well. They're not getting along. You have a low structure. It's ill-defined. The only thing that they have is a strong power position. Now, who do you prefer? The person with a low LPC, which is very task-oriented, or the person with a high LPC? And tell me why. Mukadas, you have your mic open? Now, if I mispronounce your name, please do not hesitate to correct me.
Sorry, it's well pronounced. It's Mukadas. Mukadas.
Mukadas, okay.
Yes.
Go ahead. Do you want to answer the question or someone else? What do you think, Sam? Because you're dealing with that all the time. Who would you recommend? The one with a low LPC or the one with a high LPC? The one that we rated the least preferred co-worker harshly, or the one that we rated the least co-worker positively, nicely? Which one do you think is appropriate in this situation of crisis, where relationship member is very poor, the structure is very low, but they have very strong power? Now, I pick a very difficult example. Go ahead.
I think I want to take my time to study this framework so that I can see how to adequately answer the question without having to overthink everything.
Okay, you're the careful one. But we are all learning here. There's no wrong answer. But Dahiro, I think, raised his hand. But remember, we are all learning here. There's no wrong answer. Go ahead. Somebody to raise their hand. You can open your mic. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Aji, Dairo, you can.
So maybe when I'm on transit. But for me, actually, I can clearly say that at this situation, I think we will need the one that to rate low and high. Because at this situation of crisis, you want someone that's very decisive and someone that is dominant and that kind of having that authoritative behavior or manner in a way that they can settle the organizational leadership person. I think for me, I will go with that one.
Okay. Now, you got the right answer. Can you tell me why? What tilted the tip towards hiring the one with the low LPC, the one that is really task-oriented? Why did you pick that person? The most important part that kind of made it decisive. Your mic is closed. If you want to open your mic. Because you got the right answer. I just wanted to know, can anyone else see?
Yeah, I think he chose the low preferred worker because he was focusing more on the task and the performance, achieving task and getting good performance. You know, he was judging the co-worker based majorly on the productivity that he stands. And such workers I know are goal achievers, you know. They are motivated because they tend to look towards achieving the goals of the organization all the time, even though they are on the low LPC. They are basically task oriented, and based on that, their focus is on getting productivity done, getting the structure clear, and moving towards that angle. You know, that's why I think he preferred him.
Yes, I agree with the two of them. But just also to state that during crisis situations, direction is often lacking, structure is lacking, there's lots of confusion, lots of panicking. And so we need someone that can be calm enough to restore a measure of structure into that confusion so everyone knows exactly what to do to get whatever needs to be done to return order to the situation.
Absolutely. Now, you're absolutely right. You still have your hands up, Dahiru. Do you want to speak?
Oh, sorry, it
Or
was done.
Nico? Yeah? Someone else was speaking? Yes, you are both right. And I think that what I wanted you to actually mention is based on the assumption. We said the leader-member relation is poor. And because the leader-member relationship is poor, if you bring a nice guy, what is he going to do? There's nothing. It's already poor. And we have an emergency. We are in a crisis. We want someone that's decisive. And that someone can get away with it because they have strong power. Now, if I have switched it, say weak power, then you say, wait a minute, if the person has weak power and you're trying to be decisive and it's a low structure, it's not going to work. But because you have strong power, you can be decisive. And because the leader manager is already poor, you don't need to waste time in trying to rebuild it. First, take care of the crisis, and then you can now think about rebuilding it. The other thing is low structure, meaning the system is ill-defined, the outcome are ill-defined. You want somebody very decisive to bring structure. And therefore, your low LPC is that type of guy that want to bring structure, system clearly defined. Therefore, they're the right person. And you can see now the importance. If you were in a board and you're trying to hire someone, and that's what made the field of conscious model a very useful tool, because here they said you cannot change somebody's dominant leadership style, but you can change the situation to make them fit their style, but you cannot make them fit the situation. Therefore, what this does is tells you basically fire the guy that is there, that is not the right person, and bring the person that have a style that works. But can you keep firing people every time the situation change? That might be very challenging. But do you starting to have a better idea of what this thing is all about? Does it starting to make sense? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the remaining of the time, it's almost, okay, we're almost at 6. But let me give you, as you can see,
I have a question,
let me
sir.
see. Go ahead. You have
I
question?
have a question, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
sir.
Mm-hmm.
In what kind of organization do we think that this model can work? Sit pretty.
Okay. What kind of, let's look at what they say to us. In a low LPC task oriented, they rate their work very harshly. Their primary is to come to the task, achieve result, and build efficient system. Relations are secondary. See, tells you. High LPC rate their preferred co-worker more generously, seeing some positive trait. Their prime motivation is building good interpersonal relationship, trust, and team harmony. The task is secondary. What is the crucial point? Fielder argued that changing a leader's core style is very difficult. Therefore, you should change the situation to fit the leader's style to match the leader to the right situation. Now, favorability, what they're saying is that, you have sometimes, high favorability when you have the good leader membership is good, and clear step, predictable and pushing power. You see, strong authority. This is perfect, a high favorability. But you have the low favorability when the relationship is very tense, the tax structure is vague, ambiguous, and then weak authority. Now, we talked about the matching, but let me see if I think I enter, what it contributed, that discuss that leaders are not supposed to be effective in all situations, which is very critical. But the only place that it fails is to calculate the relationship between the relationship styles and outcome. We were not able to really define it, concretely. But let's apply this model to a real world scenario. Here, quickly, we have a mid-sized tech company, has a critical software development project that is 6 months behind schedule, over budget, and the client is furious. The team is demoralized, there's internal finger pointing, and the project requires to come out a mess. Now, what do? You don't know the situation. Assess favorability. What do you to find? Leader member is poor. The tax structure is very low, and the position power is very strong. You see, in this case, what they do, this is a very unfavorable situation. We all know that. While power is strong, the first two factors are so negative that fielders still classify this as unfavorable because the crisis is lack of clarity. What do? Identify the leader's side. You are the one that make the decision. We're just going to go with quick. The company has two potential internal candidates. For tomorrow, candidate A, high LPC, relationship-oriented. Candidate B, low LPC, known for being directive, structure, and result obsessed. Okay, which one do you choose? Candidate A, relationship is a poor fit. This is very unfavorable crisis. But candidate B is task-oriented. It's an excellent fit. The crisis requires a decisive leader. Now, the company select candidate B, task-oriented, as the turnaround project manager. You can use that in many, many, many places. We will, let me finish just these two as a tool for today. And I urge you to read it. I might send you something about the questionnaire. Now, the Hauser and Blanchard situational approach, this was a prescriptive leadership school of thought. It put that the organization performance, the leader should have the ability to adjust and adapt. Here they said, no, do not change the leader. Give the leader a change to adapt and adjust. It emphasizes identifying each situation on each follower, which requires flexibility, adaptability. This is about agility. You need to be agile. Content that leader have two significant roles. You direct follower to perform tasks and provide support to address their need and concern. You see, the School of Ohio, the School of Michigan, where you have initiative structure, consideration, production-oriented, and people employee-oriented is again here. Now you have to balance the two. This is very popular because it's very predictable and it's a prescriptive dimension. You can tell, how the leader should behave. Now, there was a lot of scholarly empirical research to demonstrate the reliability and validity, but here it is. As you can see, you have 4 leadership styles. And what do you do if you have a new hire? What do you direct them? Because they don't know what they're doing. But you provide, you don't need to support them, but you teach them. Then they started understanding what to do. You provide support, high support, but high directive because they're learning. Then now they start knowing what to do. S3, you still need to support them, but you don't direct them anymore because they know what they're doing. And finally, what do? They are ready. That's when you delegate. As you can see, this is a very practical tool for you to use, support behavior and directive. When you have new employee, you direct, then you move to the coaching part and supporting, then you start supporting, then you delegate them. That's how you share it. This is a very practical tool that it is Hauser and Blanchard situational approach. It is about the situation to your followers and how can you support them, equip them. The SMART goal theory, this is saying that you have to lead the way and remove the obstacle. You are here, your followers, that's the path. There are some obstacles on the road, you got to remove them. And the path continue to attain their goal. What do? You define goals, you clarify the path, you remove obstacle, and you provide support. This is about the path goal theory. It's also been associated with the situational leadership. That's another concept model. This was developed by Evans, but actually later improved by House. Now, this shifted from matching the leader style to providing enabling working environment. Yes. Go ahead.
Yes, I wanted to ask a question, sir. It may sound funny, but in this situation, according to Fielder, who he believes that where leadership he believes that the leadership style is fixed. And so if the situation the situation is the best solution is to match the leader to the situation, not to force the leader to change their personality. So I am wondering now, what happens in a situation where the leader is at the apex of the organization? Since you can change that, you need to move him from where he is to the situation that suits his leadership style. So where this one you can't change his you can't match him, you can't push him from the apex where he is. What happens to the organization? What do they do to salvage the situation where the leader is the issue in this thing at this on this kind of a situation?
The one way to solve that, that's why
Yes.
every single organization should have a board. This is where the board has a role. If the CEO is the problem, and you know that the CEO doesn't want to change, and he's the problem, or he is the problem, what do? If you cannot change the situation, the question becomes, how do we, the board has two options. How do you make the situation change to adapt to fit the leader's style? Now, if they know that the situation is in such that we cannot change the situation, then what do? You should have the board to decide to change it, or the board should decide to have a middle way strategy where you hire a COO or co-CEO to help, or where you bring, consultant to work with the CEO to change it. Either way, something has to give. That's what this theory is telling us, is that the leader that has high emotional intelligence, the leader that has high cultural intelligence, the leader that understands about emotional intentionality, the leader does understand a little bit about the neuroscience, of leadership. Understand that this might be the way that I'm thinking. Why am I being so stubborn? That leader might want to reconsider. Said, you know what? It is time for me to bring someone else to help me. Remember, the shared leadership approach is a perfect solution where you bring another person who could be a CEO, or it can even be a co-CEO, to come and support the current leader to transition to this phase. But either way, the board has that role, because in any organization, if you have a plane and you have two engines, in that organization, the board, the chairman of the board is the one pilot, the executive director or CEO is the other co-pilot. They have to work together. And if one of the pilot doesn't know where they're going, the other co-pilot has to intervene to make sure that they're in sync. But definitely, many organizations crash, go bankrupt, because you have a stubborn leader at the helmet of the organization that refuses to change, and therefore the entire organization perish. We have political leader.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Exactly. Yes, exactly, sir. Because sometimes it's easier said than done. Because in some organizations that are really big, but you have a sole proprietoress, that's the CEO, is like the owner, and then the board is just sitting there like toothless bulldogs, and they can't push the CEO out, they can't do anything, they're even afraid of losing their own position as board members, and they all sit and watch, and the thing is going bad, and the organizations are like crying, but nobody stands to talk, and they're all saying, okay, whispering underneath, well, this is what is happening, yet nobody is rising up to challenge the situation. So that's why I say it's sometimes easier said than done. It happens, and I don't know. Your solution sounds quite perfect, but implementing it in some ways are not as easy.
It is, you're absolutely right. And that's again why this class is called sustainable leadership. Leadership that is effective, that endure,
Sir.
that can regenerate. Thank
Yes,
you,
sir.
class. And I know we went over time, but I think we have completed all the contingency, all the classical theory. And next week we'll do the contemporary theory about the authentic leadership. We'll talk about ethical leadership. We'll talk about the shared leadership approach. And then if times allows, we should be able to start discussing some of the pillars and characteristics of servant leadership. Thank you, and you have a great weekend.
Thank you, sir. I don't know. I wanted to ask you a personal
Sure.
question. It's not for the class. I don't know if I can go on here
No, it's
or if I should send you a mail.
no, if it's something you think
No,
will
I can.
benefit the class, then you can
No,
ask.
it's not for the class. No.
Ah.
What I'm saying is that on my platform, in the classroom platform, I've done some assignments, and I noticed most of them are 100 over 100, 100 over 100. But suddenly, I saw a general score as if I've finished the class. And seeing the score, it doesn't reflect what I see. Like you see the markings 100 over 100, 100 over 100, and then you're seeing general score 69 or something percent, 66 point something percent. Meanwhile, I am still in the class. I'm wondering where the general score just came from. I think it's at the end of the course. So I think
Yes,
maybe you're marking it as if I'm from the previous class.
No, this is what I will tell you. I've been just assigned a teaching assistant this week. And he's trying to catch up. And we will be working on Monday through Thursday to clear everything. Any issue that you see,
because I was
me.
surprised seeing it.
Yeah, send me a message or take a picture of it, send it to me. But I didn't have a teaching assistant, and they're the one that should be grading your assignment. But he has been assigned this week. He's trying to catch up with the material, reading and watching the recording, and we will be taking care of everything. Don't worry. We'll correct and fix everything that you see that is wrong. We'll be fair to everybody.
All right, sir. All right, sir, because I was surprised. Thank you, sir. Okay, sir.
Any other question?
Good night, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.